If you're navigating a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and let's face it, who isn't, it's really important to focus on what's within your control. A lot of us are right now navigating organizational restructures or digital transformation, even just AI uncertainty. It's everywhere, like a rising tide around us. And under those conditions, it can feel like a lot of things are outside of our control. Or at least we feel a sense of anxiety or stress or worry, and all of those things are legitimate. But the very first step to reclaiming your performance, your thinking, your well-being is focusing on what's within your control. Marcus Aurelius, the famous Stoic philosopher, Emperor of Rome, says, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Well, he's onto something for sure, but I would actually go one step further. It's not just your mind that's within your control, i.e. what you focus on or how you perceive challenges. Things like cognitive reframing are powerful techniques within that mind mastery piece. But actually, I would argue you also have control over your emotions, i.e. your psychological state and your psychological well-being, and you have control over your physiology, i.e. your foundation of thinking and performance can be improved through things like physical exercise or sleep, or even things like physiological regulation. You probably know certain breath work techniques, or just the idea that you can regulate your breathing and consequently shift your nervous system. So this is my provocation to you for today and maybe for the rest of the week, is really focus on what's within your control. And rather than thinking that in terms of a broad philosophical concept, actually get a bit more granular. Notice what's within your control mentally. Some things to think about. Focus on a very few priorities, right? Don't be setting year goals and quarter goals when you're navigating lots of uncertainty. You have to bring your goal lines nearer and just be clear on, right, what am I focusing on? What are my top 3 priorities in the next 30 days? Mind. Also, when you're faced with the next setback or challenge or frustration, whether it's at work or it's maybe with your team, or it could even be with leadership or anything else, politics, try to meet those challenges with questions. What advice would I give someone else here? What's the opportunity here? What could I learn from this? What would someone I respect, maybe a mentor, advise me to do right here? How would I approach this as my best self? You see, what you're doing is controlling how you think about the challenge. It's really the core of what we call cognitive reframing, a really powerful technique from cognitive behavioral therapy, and it really just comes down to this idea of your outlook, your perspective on a problem, your frame affects how it affects you enormously. So pay attention to this stuff. And the third thing I encourage you to think about when you're in control of your mind is giving your brain more permission to switch off, to disconnect, to get off your screens, get off your devices, stop checking your 7th or 8th inbox when it's 9 p.m. Give your brain space to shift state, to enter a mind-wandering state. So important. And again, remember, not just your mind, but your emotions are within your control as well. A couple of provocations there. Prioritize your emotional recovery. What I mean is, all those things you love doing, where you feel a sense of joy or well-being or disconnection or balance, spending time with your friends, reading books, getting out into nature, exercising, taking care of your body, cooking, being creative, painting, watching movies, right? We all know these things. For me, it's writing music, surfing, spending time with my friends, of course. Okay, now book those things in your calendar, because what you're doing then is you're prioritizing your emotional recovery. You've felt emotional fatigue, right? So you need emotional recovery. And as you're doing that, as you're prioritizing this stuff more, what will happen is not only will you feel more in control because you are reclaiming control of how you spend your time, but you're also emotionally recharging. And what that does is it makes you more emotionally resourceful. Framed another way, that will enable you to sustain your own thinking and performance through higher levels of pressure, change, and uncertainty. And then also emotional control, what? Mindfulness. If you want to regulate your emotions real time, one of the most powerful techniques you can practice, probably the most powerful technique, is meditation / mindfulness. If you have an app that you've used before and it didn't work, try a different app. If you've never tried these practices, like put your maybe preconceptions to one side and just understand that this is the most powerful form of brain training that we know of. Meditation and mindfulness in my book really are not much more than combinations of physical relaxation and the very deliberate use of your attention, normally through the creation of deep attentional absorption. And through doing that, we have profound benefits: improved focus, improved concentration, improved cortical thickness, but also improved emotional regulation, because it actually changes the structure of your amygdala. And then physiology, remember you have control over your physiology, right? Your physiological state, but also your physiological health. Physical exercise, prioritize it, get it in each day, even if it's just 20 minutes of walking. Oxygenation, glucose flood your brain, you become more productive, more focused, you're thinking clearer, but also your well-being improves and your learning, your adaptability improves as well. Sleep, non-negotiable. You're in control of your sleep. Sometimes it might not feel it, but of course you have some influence over how much you sleep and how well you sleep. Sleeping well is really about creating the right conditions. So be mindful of your physiology, right? Things like caffeine, alcohol, temperature, cortisol, or you want to down-regulate all of that stuff. And mind, to sleep, stop working, give your brain downtime. Stop being on a device. I mean, there are lots of things within your control, all of which will help improve sleep onset, sleep depth, sleep quality, and ultimately you'll wake up feeling much more rested. And then if you do feel stressed, reclaim control physiologically through just simple breathing exercises. Like simply doing let's do one together. So the simplest form of breathwork technique I can think of is breathe in through your nose into your stomach consciously. That's easy, right? But then the out breath is key. You want a longer out breath, ideally through your mouth. So really simple, right? In through the nose to the stomach, out through the mouth for longer than the in-breath. What you're doing with that asymmetry, the longer out-breath than the in-breath, is you're simply creating this kind of parasympathetic asymmetry. Because when you breathe out, generally you access parasympathetic dominance, which is your rest and repair, i.e. it's not fight or flight, it's this recuperative thing, right? Simple. So, recap. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Yes, Marcus Aurelius, but you have power over even more than that, your emotions and your physiology. Navigating pressure, change and uncertainty. Navigating stress, the more you can reclaim your locus of control, the more resourceful you become. And perceived control, as in agency, actually has a real effect on your brain. Like it has this kind of mediating effect on stressors such that you become more emotionally resourceful. Your amygdala doesn't hijack your prefrontal cortex, but instead you can take a more measured, more intentional approach, right? So perceived control really has a measurable, observable effect on brain function. And now specifically, you've got 3 different lenses to look at over the coming 7 days. How can you regulate your mind? How can you choose what you're focusing on, cognitive reframing, mental downtime? How can you improve your emotional health, well-being, and regulation, right? That's emotional recovery and mindfulness. And then physiology. How can you control your physiology such that you are creating the foundations for thinking and performance? Top 3, exercise, sleep, physiological regulation through things like breath work. There you go. All of this stuff is within your influence. Most of it is actually within your control. Start applying this stuff.